6. Preventing miscommunication before it begins. How early intervention stabilizes meaning before drift becomes damage. Most miscommunication is treated as a problem that appears suddenly. A message lands badly. A meeting escalates. A decision unravels. By the time these moments become visible, however, the conditions that produced them have usually been in place for some time. Prevention does not begin with correction. It begins with recognition. In global client work, miscommunication rarely starts with the wrong words. It starts with subtle shifts in pressure, emotion, and expectation that quietly alter how meaning is carried. When these shifts go unnoticed, communication is forced to carry more load than it can support. Drift follows. Friction accumulates. What could have been stabilized early becomes something that must be repaired later. Preventing miscommunication means intervening before the words go wrong. Miscommunication has a long lead time. By the time a misunderstanding becomes explicit, it has often already passed through several invisible stages. Alignment weakens. Assumptions replace confirmation. Emotional tolerance narrows. People begin to hear messages defensively or selectively. None of this happens at once. The earliest signals are behavioral rather than verbal. Response patterns change. Language becomes less precise. Questions disappear. Agreement sounds present but lacks weight. These are not failures. They are indicators that communication is under strain. Professionals who wait for clarity problems to surface openly are always reacting late. Early intervention is about conditions, not content. A common mistake in prevention is attempting to fix content too early. More explanation is added. Messages are repeated. Instructions are clarified in greater detail. While well-intentioned, this often increases cognitive load and emotional pressure, especially in multilingual or hierarchical contexts. What usually needs adjustment first is not the message, but the conditions surrounding it. Is the pace appropriate for the level of uncertainty? Is emotional capacity being exceeded? Is clarity becoming risky to express? Is alignment being assumed rather than checked? When conditions are stabilized, content often resolves itself with minimal effort. Alignment must be made visible. One of the most effective preventive actions is making alignment explicit rather than assumed. In many client environments, agreement is expressed politely even when understanding remains partial. Preventing miscommunication requires creating moments where alignment can surface safely. This does not mean interrogating the client or demanding confirmation. It means structuring conversation so that shared understanding is demonstrated rather than declared. When alignment becomes visible, drift loses momentum. Professionals who do this consistently reduce the need for later correction. Pace is a preventative control. Speed is often mistaken for efficiency. In reality, inappropriate pace is one of the most common contributors to miscommunication. When conversations move faster than understanding can stabilize, meaning compresses. Nuance disappears. Assumptions multiply. Preventive communication involves deliberate pacing. Slowing a conversation slightly at the right moment often saves significant time later. It allows emotional and cognitive processing to catch up. It reduces the need for rework. It creates space for uncertainty to surface without being forced. This is not hesitation. It is control. Emotional stabilization prevents escalation. As explored in the previous chapter, emotional weather shapes how messages are received. Preventing miscommunication requires attending to emotional climate early, before discomfort hardens into defensiveness. Simple adjustments in tone, acknowledgement of complexity, or reframing of expectations can stabilize emotional conditions without drawing attention to them. When people feel steadier, they interpret messages more accurately. When emotional strain is reduced, clarity becomes less costly. Ignoring emotional signals does not keep conversations professional. It allows instability to grow unchecked. Language choice can either stabilize or strain meaning. In multilingual contexts, preventive communication involves choosing language that supports understanding rather than precision alone. This may mean simplifying structure without oversimplifying intent. It may involve avoiding idiom, ambiguity, or compressed phrasing that increases cognitive load. Professionals who adapt their language early reduce the likelihood of misinterpretation later. They do not wait for confusion to appear, they design for clarity from the outset. This is especially important when stakes are high and revision is expensive. Hierarchy must be accounted for, not challenged. Preventing miscommunication also requires acknowledging hierarchy, even when it is not explicit. Clients may not have the authority to confirm, commit, or correct openly. Pressing for clarity without recognizing this constraint often produces compliance rather than alignment. Effective prevention involves creating space for internal consultation without framing it as delay or resistance. When hierarchy is respected, communication becomes more honest. When it is ignored, meaning becomes performative. Why prevention feels invisible when it works. One of the challenges of preventive communication is that success is quiet. When miscommunication is prevented, nothing dramatic happens. Conversations feel smoother. Decisions hold. Relationships remain stable. There is no moment to point to and say, this is where the problem was avoided. As a result, prevention is often undervalued. Yet it is precisely this quiet effectiveness that distinguishes controlled communication from reactive management. Professionals who prevent miscommunication consistently are often described as easy to work with or calm under pressure. What is rarely recognized is the level of attention and skill this requires. From correction to control. Preventing miscommunication is not about being cautious or conservative. It is about applying control early, when adjustment is light and non-disruptive. It reduces the need for repair, apology, or escalation later. This chapter marks a transition in the book. Having explored how behavior, translation, invisible architecture, unspoken meaning, and emotional weather shape client dynamics, the focus now begins to shift. The chapters that follow move from understanding to application, introducing the controls that allow professionals to manage global client conversations deliberately rather than defensively. When miscommunication is prevented early, it never becomes a problem that needs solving. It simply never gains momentum.